Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and for the last week, I've been driving the 2026 Genesis GV80 Coupe Prestige Black. Up front is a 3.5 liter twin turbo V6, as well as an E-supercharger, and down below is an 8-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be making this video here today because I've spent the last actually 10 days driving this GV80 Coupe. That's just how the schedule worked out this week. And I'm excited to share with you one of, I truly believe, best luxury SUVs currently on the market. But if you'd like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. And if you'd like to see all my videos weeks or sometimes months in advance, you can head on over to my Patreon for only $5 a month. But let's get back to that 3.5 liter V6 under the hood that has a lot going on. It's messier than the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So it's a V6. We all know 3.5 liter V6. We've seen these, for the last 3-4 decades from many different manufacturers. That's not interesting. Throw some twin turbos at it. This forces more air into the engine. More air with more fuel makes more boom, makes more power. Now Genesis has thrown a 48-volt E-supercharger at this, which basically sends even more air into the engine at low RPM, so there's no turbo lag. Turbos usually take a little bit of time to spool up. They have to build pressure, so right off the line, when the engine is in low RPM, it doesn't actually add that much power. The E-supercharger fills in that gap, so it artificially pumps more air in the engine while the turbos are spooling, and then at higher RPM, the turbos spool up. They add more power themselves. What you need to know over all of that is that it makes 409 horsepower and is a very, very good power plant. 409 horsepower out of this vehicle is fantastic. Exactly what you need, not an ounce more, and I love that about it. Reliability down the road? We'll see. Jury's still out, but you can find GV80s without the E-supercharger, so if that does worry you, you can go that route. But if you're going to lease one of these, definitely get the E-supercharger. After 3 years, turn it back in. Don't look at it again. Like I said, paired to it is an 8-speed automatic transmission. It's doing its job. It's lovely, and I really enjoy it. And last but not least, of course, the GV80 Coupe is all-wheel drive. How does it feel to drive the GV80 Coupe? It is absolutely lovely, and this is going to tie into my final thoughts segment quite a bit, but it's nice, it's quick, and it is just so gosh darn comfortable. It feels so refined in here and so luxurious, even more so than some of the legacy luxury brands like BMW, like Mercedes, like Audi. This actually has a more plush experience. And honestly, at some points, this does come in cheaper than the German counterparts. Now, I'll be honest here, at $91,000, it's hard to justify the price of this car. It's still a pretty shiny penny. But at the end of the day, comparatively to other luxury products, this actually is a pretty solid deal. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior, but I actually want to touch on one of the packages before we do so. This has the Prestige Black package, meaning it gets black wood on the inside, the shifter and control dial are blacked out, the entire interior is black, the wheels on the outside are black, the trim on the outside is black, the exhaust tips are black. And I personally don't really like this package just because Genesis has so many other great interior colors like the reds and the blues that we've seen here before. I think this sort of mutes the style of the GV80. But if you want something that is going to sort of be a little bit more stealthy, you want that stormtrooper look, this is a package that you can jump for. I just didn't want to spend the whole interior saying, and this is black, and that's black, because that would get quite repetitive. So let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a digital gauge cluster. This is shared with pretty much all Genesis and Hyundai products. I think it's clear and easy to read. And as you change the drive modes, you do get slightly different gauges, which is a really nice touch, and I like it quite a bit. On the steering wheel, on the left, we do have our adaptive cruise and steering assist. And off to the right, we have our favorites, volume, phone options, and all of those goodies. Again, a black badge in the center of the steering wheel. Off to the left, we have a climate control vent. We have our gauge dimmer switch, hill descent control, traction control off, power tailgate, and power parking brake. And moving on to the door, we have our latch to get in and out, our speaker grills for the Bang & Olufsen sound system, 2 memory seat options, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows. Moving into the center, we get a continuation of that gauge cluster screen. There actually isn't a break between the gauge cluster and the infotainment, which I think is a nice little touch. A lot of vehicles try to do this big screen, but there's an obvious split in the middle. Genesis, not obvious. Really love that. There isn't anything too cutting edge in here that I really need to tell you about. It does have a 360 camera that's very clear. It has the wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. All the fixings that you would want in a modern screen, you find here in the Genesis GV80 Coupe. Down below, we have 2 climate control vents. Then we have our physical buttons for the radio, map, media, things like that. I like that they retain this option, these sort of hotkeys for the radio. And then we have our climate controls. Big talking point here. Well, first of all, we have the dual zone climate, heated and ventilated seats, of course. We also get to choose the airflow per passenger. So the passenger can change where their airflow comes from differently than the driver. I like that little touch, especially us that have significant others in our lives. This is a marriage saver. However, the one thing I do want to talk about is the scent. There's a mode here in the Genesis, and there's little pods underneath the dash that actually emit a scent, basically perfume for the car. I really, really love this, mainly because it was on when I first got into the car, and as soon as I smelled it, I immediately recognized, my brain clicked and said, we're in a Genesis product. It is such a signature smell that I haven't smelled anywhere else, that it really, really brought those feelings back immediately, which was very, very cool and very special. We do get a cubby down here that has a wireless charger, 2 USB-Cs, and a 12-volt outlet. And moving into the center here, again, everything's smoked out. We do have our selector for the green off to the left. We have our transmission shifter down below that. It is still a crystal shift knob, but again, a darker accented one. And then off to the right, we have cup holders. So we will do a big friggin' model test here in the GV80 Coupe. And I'm very happy to report that it actually does, in fact, pass the big friggin' bottle test. Not too big of a surprise. A lot of Hyundai products do, but the Genesis GV80 does as well. Then we do have some buttons down below for our parking cameras, parking sensors, and auto start stop on and off, as well as our drive mode select and terrain mode select. So we get Eco, Comfort, Sport, and Sport Plus, as well as My Mode, which is a custom mode. And then for terrain mode, we have snow, sand, and mud. Very, very cool that they offer so many different modes here for the GV80 Coupe. We do have an opening center console, and you can lift this little shelf out, and it actually does go even deeper. I like that separation. And then we'll talk about the seats. The seats are heated, ventilated, power memory, and massaging. Now, we get 3 different levels of massaging, and this is only for the driver. Unfortunately, Genesis does not give massage features to the passenger. I don't really know why. I'm sure it's somewhat cost saving, but every other luxury car that I've ever driven that has massage seats also incorporates them for the passenger, except for Genesis. So, very interesting to note there. But they are very comfortable, no complaints there, and we do have back seats, so let's hop back there and do a backseat review. All right, let's get in the back of the Genesis GV80 Coupe. As you can see, the quilting carries on back here. Absolutely love this touch. And already just looking at it, very, very luxurious. But let's step in here, and it is very, very nice. As you can see, my knees are not hitting the seat in front of me, and my head's not hitting the ceiling. I fit in the back of the Genesis GV80 Coupe very, very well. I'm a big guy, 5'11", not a small guy, about 270. I fit back here totally, totally normally. So odds are anyone in your family, kids, aunts, uncles, are probably going to fit back here pretty well too. We do have heated and ventilated rear seats. I get my own ventilated rear seat back here. I get my own fan speed back here, as well as temperature, single zone climate for the rear, but that is totally fine. Some vehicles, most vehicles don't even have any climate zone for their rear, so beggars can't be choosers. Down here, we do have 2 USB-Cs as well as a traditional wall outlet. Love to see both of those. And a cool feature up here is that you can actually move up the passenger seat in order to give more room. So if you are doing like a car service or you're shuttling someone around, you can really give them the most leg room and space physically possible. So let's get this all the way up out of the way. Scoot that up as far as humanly possible. And now look at that amount of space. Absolutely love that. Try to shield the sun here. So luxurious. Tons of space. Love that. You also do get a little pocket back here. Like to see that as well. But now I will put it back into place so when I do the interior shots, it doesn't look completely wild. We do also get a panoramic sunroof as well. I usually keep it closed, but there we go. Absolutely adore that. You get to enjoy that from the back seat, and now you're being blasted by the sun. So I hope that you're happy. But there we go. Push that easy, one touch, and the shade moves with the actual sunroof, so it's all very, very quick. We do get a center console as well. 2 cup holders found in here, and I don't know if this is supposed to be heated, but it is warm. I forgot to mention, when you turn on your heated seat, this is also heated as well. So very, very nice. It has heated armrests here in the GV80 Coupe. I know that was a mouthful. I apologize, but let's hop into the back and take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space. Right around the back of the GV80 Coupe, we press right here up above the rear camera, and now we are in the back. We do have a little privacy cover. Lift that up. We have a 12-volt outlet and power folding buttons for the second row, so I'll try to get, there we go. Push those buttons, and as you can see, we'll try to get a shot of live happening. Here we go. Those seats will power fold down. Absolutely love that. That's going to be a problem to lift it back up. But there you go. Push it again, and they come right back up. Absolutely love that. Mainly for people who have bad backs, that is a huge, huge feature. We get some lights down here as well. We can pull up the carpet. We do get a little bit of storage down there as well, so nice to see all of that. To close up the trunk, all you have to do is press this button, and there you go. Cool, calm, and collected from the Genesis brand, which I would expect. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and honestly, this is probably my least favorite looking version of the GV80 Coupe just because of the black Prestige package. I don't like black wheels on cars. I think it loses the detail, and when the car is moving, it kind of looks like a hovercraft almost. It's not a great look in my opinion, especially the stark contrast between white and black on this car. It really looks like a stormtrooper, and you lose that detail. You know, it's so polarizing on either end of the color spectrum that it doesn't really blend well in my opinion. I'm just not a big fan of white cars with black wheels. It's very 2005 MTV Cribs to me. You know, I think of like the white Murcielagos with black wheels that every rapper had, so I don't love it. Maybe it's your style and you could seek this package out, but if I were to spec my own Genesis GV80 Coupe, I wouldn't do that. There's also the Genesis GV80 Coupe, which does have a more sloped rear end. Here's the side profile, obviously, of this car. Here's the side profile of the regular Genesis GV80. You can see that tail end does change quite a bit. However, with all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think having driven this Genesis GV80 Coupe for the last 10 days? Well, it's been a great experience. It has been a quiet, comfortable, quick, luxurious experience. It is really, truly one of my favorite luxury SUVs. And I'm looking at the BMW X3. I had one of those last year, and I'm forever grateful for that car. That's the car I was able to drive to the hospital when I had to have my emergency surgery. And I like that car a lot. You know, that was a great, great automobile. But I think this is a little bit better. It's actually cushier. It feels more comfortable. I think it feels maybe not more modern, because the BMW X3 had all these like crazy like art installation interior features, but this feels a little bit more refined. Again, with that smell, this feels like a nice luxury hotel. You get in this car and you just kind of go, you know, it's a sigh of relief every time you get into this car, where when you get into the BMW X3, it's like, ooh, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. There's 80 different color changing things going on, and the doors are shaped weird, and everything is interesting and weird to look at. This, you know, this is a little bit more subtle, which I really, really enjoy. And that's actually what I used to like about BMW back in the day. This has sort of taken that crown. This feels more like a spiritual successor to the X3 and X5 of the 2000s than the new X3 and X5 feel to their own siblings. And again, I know I bring this up in every Genesis and Hyundai review, but if you just look at what the Hyundai Motor Corporation was doing 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's insane the amount of progress that they've made. People look at these and go, oh, it's actually just a Hyundai. You know, Kanye West rapped, he won the Super Bowl and drove off in a Hyundai as a diss. Well, now, I think really, truly, Genesis is eating the German kids' lunch. And boy, does Genesis have a hankering for some schnitzel. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Genesis for loaning me this vehicle for the last week. Huge thank you to Drive Shop for facilitating the cleaning and delivery of this vehicle. And of course, the Midwest Automotive Media Association. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.